Welcome everyone to Design Bytes, a weekly series that takes a look at and breaks down good, bad, and interesting instances of game design. For today's video, we're going back to the early 90s to take a look at two signature level design choices from the original Sonic the Hedgehog: the Shuttle Loop and S-curve tunnels found in Green Hill Zone. It might sound a little nuts, but let's learn how these two mechanics alone are able to teach players in 20 seconds almost everything they need to know about Sonic's abilities and handling. So we all know that Sonic's main differentiator is his high-speed gameplay, but it can be argued that momentum is actually more important to the core design of the original Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic 1 is the most fun when players are moving quickly throughout levels by constantly building momentum through skillful usage of the level layout. It's the reason why Sonic zones are massive, both horizontally and vertically, with multiple branching pathways. But back then, Sonic also needed something else when he debuted: a real physics engine that could handle that dynamic relationship between momentum and speed. Games in the 90s didn't have a dynamic engine like Sonic, so players back then had no concept of how a game like Sonic 1 could work. Sonic 1's gameplay can come down to two things that the designers needed to clearly communicate in the first level. First is that momentum exists, and it's the main tool used to build speed to overcome obstacles. Second, players need to understand just how flexible the physics engine is and what it fully allows Sonic to do, because when it's used correctly, it allows for a platforming experience that was completely unparalleled at the time. Let's start with the very first Shuttle Loop found in the Sonic series, this one in Green Hill Zone. Players will encounter this just over halfway through the level, and at this point, they haven't really seen anything like it before, so they probably won't know how to interact with it at first. While it's true that there is a path that leads above it allowing players to skip it, the chance of newer players going that route is pretty low, because it requires precise platforming and knowledge that the higher path exists. Almost everyone is going to come across this loop the first time they're wandering around Green Hill Zone. The first time up, most players will try to tackle it by simply brute forcing their way by trying to run to the right. Unfortunately, they won't get very far because Sonic will only be able to make it up a small portion of the initial slope. But one very important thing happens here. Sonic comes down the loop with increased velocity, which makes him go further left than players anticipate. This helps communicate that the more speed Sonic has, the further he can go using a curve found in the level. So what do new players do next to try to overcome the loop? They start a little bit further left, gather up a bit of speed, and they still don't make it up there. But that too is okay, because they got a lot further up the right side of the Shuttle Loop this time around. So they've now learned that they can overcome it, they just need a significant amount of momentum. Sega's level designers here did an excellent job, because to the far left of the loop is a long sloped surface that helps players gain momentum and speed. This is actually the largest slope in the entirety of Act 1, and that's no accident. It's here solely for the purpose of supporting the loop and allowing players to easily get the necessary momentum to overcome it. Players rev up, start running, and finally make it through the Shuttle Loop to continue their adventure with a burst of newfound speed they gain from the downwards curve. The Shuttle Loop is a great example of showcasing Sonic's need for momentum and how he can interact with level geometry in a way that was groundbreaking at the time. The Shuttle Loop itself is designed well because it's an obstacle that provides an immediate reward upon its completion. If you draw an imaginary line down the center of the loop, it's easy to break down. The right side of the loop is the obstacle. Players only need enough momentum to reach the very top of it. The left side is the reward. For reaching the top of the loop and overcoming the right side, players gain a significant amount of speed, easily the most they'll have up until this point. That is, of course, until Sonic reaches the next section of Green Hill Zone, where Sega introduces a small S-shaped tunnel. The placement of this is totally intentional. It comes after the Shuttle Loop, so players can't react in time to avoid it, because they will already have plenty of speed. First-time players might otherwise question if they are supposed to go into the tunnel, because it's a strong contrast from the openness that they've seen in Green Hill Zone so far. As soon as players touch the entrance of the curve, Sonic automatically curls up into a ball and rockets through at a high speed. This is critical because it demonstrates two things. First, Sonic can still move forward while he's in his ball form, and second, Sonic can go much faster than a player would expect from everything else they've seen so far in Green Hill Zone. This whole spot in Act 1 is dedicated to showing players the full range and extent of the physics engine found in Sonic 1 and how it affects the gameplay. To really emphasize this, the developers immediately placed a second S-curve right after the first one that players are also forced to go through. Even though Sonic is already moving extremely fast, the second S-curve makes him zoom through even faster, just to really show off his peak speed. At the end of the second tunnel, the designers placed a curved ramp which launches Sonic high into the air through a field of golden rings. It's a wonderful and thrilling visual to see Sonic soar through the air like this, and back in the 90s, no other game or platformer could match this type of spectacle. Because it's so visually impressive, it imprints the idea in a player's mind that the level terrain can affect Sonic's abilities, such as speed and jump height. This serves as a memory mechanism for players to refer to later on when presented with other challenges where they'll need to skillfully use the terrain to overcome them. Sega did an amazing job of showcasing Sonic's potential in these two set pieces, and both of them help players get hooked into the game. Ultimately, the Shuttle Loop and S-curve tunnels are two simple design choices that on their own can each teach a player a crucial element of Sonic 1's core design and unique gameplay. The Shuttle Loop teaches players about building momentum through level geometry and turning it into speed to overcome obstacles. The S-curve tunnels show the full range of Sonic's top-end speed and how that can be translated into increased jump height to reach new paths and goodies. In a span of 20 seconds in the very first Sonic level ever, Sega was able to showcase what made their new mascot special, and it's been a blur ever since.